Hello and welcome to the 45th Annual Philadelphia Museum of Art Craft Show. Today we're going to be visiting the studio of Becky Lloyd, who is a potter who lives and works in Western North Carolina. She hand throws porcelain vessels and then intricately decorates each one of them with carved botanical patterns and motifs in a technique known as sgraffito. Becky graduated in 1990 from Lloyd College in Wisconsin with a BA in studio art, and she has been working with clay ever since. She has won numerous awards from the American Craft Council show in Baltimore and Atlanta, and she's won Best of Show in our own PMA craft show. Unfortunately, for all of us, Becky will not be in person at the show, but will be available online, and she will have a special body of work available during the show for PMA craft show participants. Becky, would you be able to describe what sgraffito is and what drew you to this form?
Can I introduce you real quickly to one very important person in my studio? And
Absolutely.
He's not a person, but this is Charlie, and he is my faithful studio pal. He's kind of the supervisor of the whole show. So anyway, I'm gonna grab a pot here so you can see. So let's get in the light here. Sgraffito is just a term that means to carve, and so it's been around for a very, very, very long time. And the Greek vases, red and black Greek ware that you see, that's sgraffito. I think in Hungary, the tile work, that's sgraffito. It's something that I just kind of stumbled upon. Years ago, I learned, I was brought up in clay, learning how to wood fire, and I started carving on pots and eventually got kicked out of the wood kiln because that didn't work out. But it was just really a fluke that I started carving. I'm not a drawer. It's my biggest regret that I didn't take more drawing classes in college. So I've kind of figured out what I can draw with my X-Acto knife on pots, and I'm just going to show you this one too. Yeah. So what I'd like to do is just show everyone the process that I go through and give you an idea of the time and the amount of attention and that I give each pot, because they're all very special to me. I work on one at a time. I don't work on more than one piece at a time, and I put a lot of heart and soul into them. So if you'd like, we'll go over here. And feel free to ask me any questions, Linda.
Okay.
This, you can see, this is the ware rack's pretty empty right now because I fired not too long ago for the show. So this is just some of the work that I have sitting here waiting to be siged and then carved. And every piece right now is bone dry. And it's porcelain. But it's bone dry, it's very fragile, and that's how it is when I work on it too. So once the piece is dry, once I've thrown it on the wheel and it's dry, I coat it with a liner glaze, and this is called amber celadon, and I let that dry a day. And then what I do is I take my terra sigillata, which is basically just liquid clay that I ball mill, and then I let it settle out for about a week, and then I add black stain, ball mill it a little bit more, and then I have this stuff. So what I do is just take my brush. It's a little finicky. I try to put it on as thin as possible, because if I put it on too thick, it'll just pop off when I start carving it. But I also have to make sure that it's actually coating the piece so that I can't see the clay. And it's kind of a tricky process because really once it's dry, it's very difficult to see if there's a light spot. And I really don't know that until it's been fired. I've gotten pretty good at making sure that that doesn't happen. I see it as kind of a flaw. Other people don't, but I like to make sure that it's really completely black. So
does it dry as you're applying it even? Does that make it?
Yeah, it kind of, the clay is so bone dry that it kind of sucks it up.
Okay.
It is kind of hard, you know, once I start stitching it, if I keep going over a spot, sometimes I have to just wait and let it dry because it is a little moist and it doesn't want to suck up any more of the terracage. I only use black. I did a collaboration a few years ago. I guess it's been several years ago with a friend, Sue Terrell, who does amazing pottery, and she threw the pots. She mailed them to me when they were leather hard. I got them and let them dry. And then she had drawn some of her animals on them for me, and they were actually in red. And it was really fun to have some color, but I like to stick to just the black. So anyway, that's kind of what I do with those. And then when they're drier, they look like this. So they look kind of bluish. So once the piece is dry, I'm going to show you what I do next, which is I have to clean it up and I put some bands on it. You know, I look at each piece and decide how I want to break it up for carving. And the foot is very important to me. When I decorate, I do the whole pot. So right now this is upside down. So I put it on my Giffen grip. This one's a little wonky, but that's okay.
So right now you're just trying to smooth out the foot?
Well, I do try to smooth out the foot, but see, I'm putting bands.
Oh, I see. Yes.
On so that I do clean up the foot. Like this is, you know, I need to get this off of here. So yeah, this one's got a little bit of a wonky foot to it, but that's okay. They're not perfect. They're not machine made. They're hand made.
No, they're not by any means.
my least favorite thing is throwing pots on the wheel. My late husband and I collaborated, and Steve was an amazing thrower, and it was great to have someone else just take care of that and enjoy throwing and then giving me the pots. So since he passed away, it's been 7.5 years of like, okay, I can do this, I can throw. You know, I wanted to do it all myself. So I kind of have to get all psyched up to throw. And then when I do it, I'm like, oh, I'm not so bad at it. But, you know, I tend to keep the pots pretty small because that's what I'm comfortable with. And I like how intimate the smaller pieces are. I've carved really big pieces. Steve made me some really, really big bottles. I think the last time we were at Philly in 2014, we had a couple of those. So anyway, once I get the bands on, this one has a little, I don't know if you can even see it. Sometimes when I throw this form, I leave a little bump of clay, and then that just naturally breaks up the pot for me. Sometimes I'll put bands on that too, and then carve around that. Sometimes I leave it. I think this time I'm just going to leave that bump. So I'll just clean up the top of it.
So are you just using an X-Acto knife then to do this?
This right now, my favorite, I only use 3 or 4 tools. This is a Kemper it's either MR5 or MR6 loop tool. I don't know if you can see it. They come in those packs. Some people buy the packs like students do, where there are 2 circles, 2 triangles. I use the big one and the little one. I buy them in packs of 25. It's probably my most expensive studio cost. Even I don't buy very much clay. I don't go through it very fast. But these tools are great, except once they get, clay wears them away. So once they get grooves in the tip and on the sides, I can't really use them anymore. I do try to give them to, I have a friend who, she gives me new ones and I wear them down because she likes to use them when they're all worn down. So that works out pretty well.
That works. Yeah.
So
How many pots can you use the tool on? Like,
oh, I don't even keep track. I just, if I start using it and I'm like, oh, that just doesn't feel right, then I just done with that one. Okay, so that's how we get. I guess I should put a band on this one though, otherwise you're not going to see what I'm talking about with the bands. I'll do one around the top here.
oh, it's like magic.
Mm-hmm. So it's a way for me to kind of loosely plan out. I don't know what pattern I'm going to put on this yet, but it's a way for me to plan out how I'm going to break up the pot to work on it. And sometimes I don't want to put any bands on them, and sometimes I get a little overzealous and I put too many. Sometimes I make a mistake and I have to put too many. Like this one has got a little bit of, let's see. And I do use these little loop tool, the circle loop tool sometimes too. But it's fun to kind of play with how they're going to look broken up. So that's how I do that. Because sometimes it shows, I've had people say, when I say I carve them all by hand, and it's all freehand when my carving, they're like, you put those bands on there freehand? I'm like, no, my hands aren't that steady, that's pretty good. So after we do that, you want to come over here, Austin? Trying to decide. Well, I'll just show you. Here's one that is this light okay? One that I'm working on right now. I don't know, can you see it okay?
Yeah, it's gorgeous. I love the grass.
So this is my little table I sit at, and I think what I'm going to do is come back to this one. I'm going to break my rule and work on more than one thing at a time here for you guys. Let's see. Let's do this one. So one of my favorite patterns. Let's see. Well, this one's a good example. It's got like it's kind of got everything you could possibly want as far as patterns go on it. One of my favorite patterns that I've been doing ever since I started carving is this little one right here. Everything with me has started out bigger and more white. And over the years, I've just condensed it more to where I really try to get as small as I possibly can. So I'm going to show you. Let's see. So what I use the most of anything else is my X-Acto knife. This is the same base I've had since I started carving, and when did I start? About 2000. So I've had the same base, and it's the number 11 blade, and I use them. I don't know if you want to show, Austin. I have all these little piles because I wear down too. So sometimes I need a brand new sharp one depending on what pattern I'm doing. Usually when I'm drawing on a pattern, I want one that's kind of worn down a little bit. So I think what I'll do here, you know what, I'm going to do this one just so you can see. I'll do a little bit of the grasses. My hand is steady enough right now. So I don't use too much pressure. and this is, I'm drawing those grasses like on the other one. And I just,
And I'm noticing that you're left-handed.
I am. Left-handed in it's a right-handed world. Austin,
Yeah.
my garden, as I say that all the time. Spiral notebooks are not my friend.
So when you say you do this, you know, freestyle or freehand, you really, you don't have even like the outlines of anything going on other than these.
Nope, I just go for it.
That's amazing.
So, you know, and everything is like that. You know, sometimes I mess up. Like right now, I'm a little nervous, so it's hard for me to keep my hands steady to do this. Is kind of a hard pattern to do, like this. But you know, it's just very painstaking, slow, and overlapping. That actually, with this pattern, the hardest part is once I get them all drawn on here. I'm gonna get that other one. What I do. So once all those leaves are drawn on there, I have to look at this and make sure I know where the negative space is. And that's where I use this tool again. And I use that, I go back through and I carve out all the negative space in here. So sometimes I get lost and I have to stop and be like, where was I going with that? But yeah, so every pot, for the most part, with every pattern is gone over at least 2 times, sometimes 3. You know, as you can see here, I don't know if you can see, I drew all these leaves on with my X-Acto knife. And now I'm going back around and outlining them with this one.
Right.
So, you know, that always, sometimes I think I want to leave them, but I usually don't, because I like the contrast when I do this. What I wanted to show you though, so as a potter, the bottoms of pots are extremely important to me. Whenever I'm looking at someone else's pots, first thing I do is turn it over and look at the foot. It just gives you a feel for the pot, I think. And it's fun to see if the potter has done any decoration on the bottoms. Some people do, some people don't.
Yeah.
I give it as much attention, if not more, than some people.
Beautiful.
This pattern, I think I will start on here, is one that I love to do. So I need to change my, and I don't know if it's just because I know it's going to take me a while, or I mean, I like the way it looks. I love the way it looks, but I also like that it takes a while. So, and it is basically this pattern here, only I'm using a different tool. And I'm just making it that much smaller. So let's see. And it takes a very long time because I have to not put too much pressure. I have to get the right X-Acto blade. And I have to just, but it's very random, you know, it's just me.
How much time in total do you think you spend on just on the carving piece alone for a vessel this size?
It's so hard to say. I used to keep track. I had some students of Steve's ask me at one time, you know, how do you keep track? How do you pay yourself? You know, do you? And I was just kind of like, oh, I don't, you know, I just kind of work on them. And, you know, this probably, this T-bowl, if I had my full time in the studio every day, you know, at least 6 hours, probably a couple days, if not longer, you know. I mean, this, if I work on this the rest of today, I might get it done doing this tiny pattern. Just gonna do a little bit more.
I think it's important for people to realize the number of hours that you spend doing these very intricate, detailed designs that are just exquisite.
Well, I tend to know, I'm going to grab that bowl again. I tend to pay more attention when it's a piece that just brings everything to a screeching halt. So like, this bowl definitely did that.
Yes.
I probably worked on this for about a week and a half because, this is that tiny pattern that I was doing, that I was just showing you. And then this is another one that I do where I draw these leaves on with the X-Acto knife, and then I go back through and draw these little lines in here, just randomly. And then, carving, whenever I'm carving the inside of a piece, it's just more difficult because the angle of your hand. I really enjoy carving the small plates and bowls that are inside and outside. They're some of my favorite things because when they come out, well, they're pretty awesome. So I don't know if there are any other questions you want to ask.
Well,
me.
after you finish the carving, then you fire them. You fire your piece.
Yep, I have an electric kiln. It goes up to cone 10, about 2,300 degrees. It's in my garage. Like I said, I started out firing in a wood kiln, and we had a wood kiln when we lived in Minnesota. And then we built a little salt kiln. And when we moved down to North Carolina 15 years ago, we got an electric kiln because it made sense. It takes me, it's pretty big, but it takes me forever to fill it up. If I get 40 pots in a firing after working 3 months, that's pretty good for me. It depends on the size and of them, but that's pretty full kiln for me. So I probably fire my kiln maybe 4 or 5 times a year, not that often. But yeah, so once I'm done, carving them, they sit on my shelf and they're ready to go. And the nice thing about them always is that by the time they go into the kiln, they're absolutely bone dry. So I don't have to worry about anything being too wet and blowing up in the kiln.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. After all that work, do you lose many pieces, or it must be heartbreaking when you do?
The one that always makes me laugh, I should have brought it down here because it cracks me up. I have it upstairs. When Steve and I got a North Carolina arts grant to make some big pieces, he was going to make big bottles and I carved them, and we were in a show in Raleigh, but I ended up with, I think we had 8. The first one we fired was just all this leaf pattern. Took me forever, it's like this big, nice bulbous. And we fired the kiln like we always do, which is we take it up to temperature and then let it cool down naturally. So, we opened up the kiln and she was like, "Oh, that looks great." And I pulled it out and there was this huge smiley face crack, right around the bottom, because we didn't think about how fast the kiln was slowing down for a piece that was that big. Yeah. So we had to program it, but I do lose pieces occasionally. I just lost a couple in this last firing, and my daughters each got a nice cup that's still functional, but every once in a while they get this little hairline crack right around here. And I haven't quite figured out why. And I actually have to put my glasses on to see it, because sometimes I don't even see it the first time when I take them out, So generally when I take stuff out, I'm kind of doing this, looking for light spots and little cracks, but I don't, compared to other potters, I really don't lose very much when I fire. So I'm lucky that way, I think. And Steve always just reminded me, he's like, "It's just pottery." Just pottery that I spent a lot of time on.
Yeah, but when you're spending hours and hours carving, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Do you want to show us some of the items that you will be having available for the show before we close?
Yeah. So these guys have not been on my website before.
Oh, I like that one.
Yeah, I love this one. I love it. I love the shape of it and the pattern. And I've kind of been hanging on to it, saving it for the show. Let's see, this one just came out of the firing, and it's a favorite too. I really like the bottom of it.
The detailing is just so remarkable.
I feel really spoiled. I mean, I feel like, I mean, being an artist, it's stressful and trying to make ends meet, but at the same time, I feel really spoiled because I feel like I just get to play all day making pots and doing what I really love to do. This one I've been hanging on to for a long time too. I really like the inside of it. I don't know, can you see that okay?
It-
The light.
The lighting, that's a little difficult, but boy.
Better?
Oh.
So it again is that tiny little pattern. I like to do that tiny little pattern whenever I can. And putting it on the inside of a piece is always iffy because I didn't say this, but the pieces, the reason I set them on that banding wheel is because since they're not fired, they're very fragile, but also that the glaze, the terra sigillata that I put on the outside, if I handle them too much, it rubs off and then I get light spots. Some of my friends, they hold their pots when they're working on them. I try not to touch them very much, and also brushing the dust off with that little brush, especially when it's something that's on the inside, it can cause light spots too. So sometimes I just go for it because I just want to see if I can do it and if it'll come out, and I get lucky. Let's see, this is another little piece that I really love. That
one's beautiful too. Now, are these meant to be just decorative? Well, these vessels, the bowls rather than the cups, are they just meant to be decorative, or can you actually put food in those? Or
I would say, with the bowls, I wouldn't put any food in them. You could put other things in them, but as far as the cups go, I've had so many people buy, the tea bowls, and they use them.
my husband bought one and uses it.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I've never had anybody say, oh, this got stained, or this, it's not holding up the way it's supposed to. I mean, the clay is going up to almost 2,300 degrees, so it is vitrifying. So yeah, and of course the liner glaze. I don't know, did I show you the inside, how that amber celadon looks? It's kind of hard to see.
I don't know if the camera can catch it quite, but it's a beautiful interior.
Yeah, I don't know if you can really see it.
Yeah, the lighting is strong enough.
So that's, pretty much it. I do post pictures on Instagram of how tiny these guys are. I love the tiny little pots. They're some of my favorite things to make, just because they are so little. But that's pretty much what I do all day.
Well, thank you very much, Becky. It was a real treat to see your studio and to see the process that you go through, because it really is so meticulous and intricate. And I just want to remind everybody once again that really unfortunately for us, because I think your pieces need to be seen in person to really appreciate their beauty. That you will not be at the show in person this time, but that your wares will be available online, and you will be available online during the show hours to answer questions and help people who are interested in your work, finding out more about your work. So thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.